Yeah, you like that piano? We keep it classy here on Coding with Robbie. My name's Robbie and welcome to my channel. This is my first ever video where I'm going to show you how to create a full stack MERN CRUD app. So MERN stands for MongoDB, Express, React, and NodeJS. So it's probably one of the more popular web stacks. And yeah, this is going to be a three-part series. So you're watching the first part right now where we're going to set up our Express backend. Second part, we're going to connect it to React. And then the last part, we're going to add JWT authentication to both the backend server and the front end. I might do a fourth part after that, depending on how these go. But yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so false alarm, I got more to say. So I was going to record this video from my Mac, but it just couldn't handle the recording. So I'm doing it from my Windows PC, but all the commands I use are universal. So if you're on Windows, you can follow along. If you're on Mac, you can follow along. And before you get started, you want to make sure to have a couple things installed. You're going to want NodeJS, NPM, and then a code editor. But other than that, that's it. Now we're going to start for real. Alright, so let's jump right in. We're going to create a new folder on our desktop, and we'll just name it server. And then we're going to open up our terminal, and we're going to type cd space, and then just drag the folder into terminal. It's going to put the path, and then just hit enter. And now we're in the server folder. And once we're there, we're going to run npm init-y. And this command right here just creates a package.json file. And now that we have that file, we can install packages. So to install, it's npm install --save. And then you just list out the packages you want. So we're going to want express, mongoose, .env, and then nodemon. So run that command and it's going to download everything. And it'll just take a second. Alright, it's done, and then let's open the folder in VS Code with code dot. So we got our package right here, and then we got the node modules folder, which contains all our packages that we downloaded. And the packages themselves have dependencies, so there's a lot of extra folders. But yeah, we got everything downloaded, so let's create our main server.js file. And this will be the main entry point to our app. And then let's open up package.json. And we're going to add a new script, so we'll call it dev. And when someone runs dev, we want it to run nodemon server.js. And nodemon just watches the file for changes and restarts it whenever there's an update. So we created that script. Let's go ahead and run it now. So it's npm run, and then whatever you named it. So we named it dev. Hit enter, it's running it. And yeah, now it's watching our file for changes. So let's go to our server file. And let's start by importing Express. So let's create a new section, import dependencies. And then it's const express equals require express. And then below that, we're going to create an Express app. So let's go const app equals, and then we're just going to run this Express function we imported. Below that will be our routing, and then at the bottom we're going to start our server. And to start the server, it's just app.listen, and then you give it a port number. And then let's just do a little hello world route, so app.get. It's going to be on the root path, and then this takes a function that receives request and response. And then anytime someone hits this path, it's going to run our function right here. So all we want our function to do for right now is just respond with JSON. So res.json, and then we'll just give it an object, so hello world. So there should be a functioning web server. Let's try it out in Chrome and see if it's working good. Well, first let's check terminal. There's no errors. Then we'll go to Chrome and we'll go to localhost 3000. And we get our hello world message. So everything seems to be working good. So the next thing we're going to do is just set up this .env package that we installed. And if we check it out on npm, this is just a package to set environment variables in an easy way. All you got to do is create a .env file and then just put some variables in there and it'll load it up. And an environment variable is just a variable that's specific to your environment, as you can probably guess. So for example, we're developing locally and we're listening on port 3000. Maybe our server has to be a different port. or maybe it connects to a different database, and it's just a place to store variables like that. So let's set this up. We already installed it, and then we just have to create a .env file in the root of our project. So we'll do that. So new file .env, and then it's just a key equals to value. So let's make one for our port. So it'll be port is equal to 3000. Hit save, and now we're going to use this variable within our server file here. So let's check out how to do that. So you have to load it as early as possible in your application with this line right here. So let's copy that, and we'll create a new section up here. So load env variables, paste that in, and now we should have access to all those variables, and you access them through process.env. Whatever you want to get. So ours is called port, so we're going to get port. Hit save. Let's check terminal again. We got no errors. Let's go back to Chrome, make sure it still works. It does, so we're successfully loading those variables and using it. And then one thing just to note is when you do deploy this to, say, Heroku or another service, they're going to have their own way to load variables. So we really only want to use this locally. So what I like to do is just wrap it in an if statement. So I'm just going to go if process.env.nodeenv is not equal to production, load the variables. So that way when we do deploy it somewhere, it's not going to load that file at all. So save that. And then, yeah, next up we gotta create and then connect to a database. So the easiest way to do that is just to sign up for MongoDB.com. Hit try free, sign up, and once you log in, you'll get to a page like this where you can create a free database. So you just go build a database, free, create, leave all this, create cluster, create a username and password. So I'll just do Robbie123. And then hit create user, scroll down, and then add my current IP, finish and close, and then go to databases, and then it's going to create a database for us right now. So while that's creating, I'll show you how to connect. So we're using this library called Mongoose, and it's just a library to interact with the MongoDB database basically. So let's check out the docs here, and they got their little quick start guide right here. So we already installed it, and then we have to connect, and then we can start creating models. So let's just handle the connection right here, right now. So here's the line to connect. So let's copy that. And we're actually going to do this in a separate file. So let's create a new folder. We'll call it config. Inside that folder, let's create a file called connect2db.js. And then inside this file, we'll create a function called connect2db, and let's just put console.log hello in there, and then we're going to use this function within our server file. So to do that, we have to export it here and then import it within server. So to export, you just type module.exports equals to, and then you put whatever you want to export. So we want to export this function right here, just like that. And then to use it in here, we have to import it. So let's go to import dependencies, const connect2db is equal to require, and then this time it's a local file. So we're going to go ./config/connect2db. So we got it imported, and then we're going to use it right down here. So connect to database, and we'll just run it. So we're importing it and then running it, and we should see our hello message in the terminal, which we do. So it's working good. So now let's make this function connect to a database. So let's go back to the docs. We got to import Mongoose. So we'll do that at the top. And then here's the line to connect. So let's copy that. We'll put it within our function. And it's using the await keyword, so we have to make this an async function. So let's do that. And then, yeah, we have to replace this with our connection URL thing. So let's delete that and go back to our MongoDB and see if it's done. Looks like it is. Hit connect, connect to application, and here it is right here. So I'm going to copy that. And this is actually another good place to use those environment variables. So let's go in here and we'll create a new one. DB URL, paste that in, and then we got to change the password. So ours was, or mine was, Robbie123. Save it up, go back here, and let's use it in here. And since we're using it, we have to load them. So let's go back here, copy the line to load it, throw it at the top, and then now we can finally use it. So process.env.dbURL. So there we go. It should be connecting to our database now. Let's check here. We got some errors earlier, but they're all fixed now. So it looks like it's connecting, but we're not getting any output. So let's just do a little try catch block here. So try. So we're going to try to run this line. And then if we get an error, we're going to catch it and console.log it. And then if we do get past that line, let's just console.log, connected to database. Hit save and check our terminal again, and it looks like we're connecting good. So now we can start defining how our database should look, and you do that with model files. So let's create a new folder called models. And we're making a note-taking app, so we're going to need a note model, so note.js. And then let's look back at the docs for Mongoose. So we connected right here, and then here's how you create a model. So let's just copy this right here, paste it in, copy this, paste it in, and then let's just kind of repurpose it. So ours is a note, so we'll name it a note schema. And a note's going to have two things. It's going to have a title, and a note's going to have a body, which is also type string. And then here's where we create the model using this schema. So let's name this note, and then right here we'll put note, and then we pass it the note schema. And then we're using Mongoose here, so we don't want to forget to import that. So let's go up top. Const mongoose is equal to require mongoose. There we go. And then we want to export this model. So it's module.exports. And then what do we want to export? We want to export our note right here. So save that, and we got our model created, which we can use to create and update and delete and do everything with. So, whoops. So we got the model created, and now we're going to use it to create a note. So let's go back to our server file, and then we'll go to routing, and we're going to create a new one to create a route, to create a note. So let's go app dot, and this time it's going to be post since we're creating something, and we want the path to be /notes, and this gets a function which receives rec and res. And then yeah, anytime someone posts to /notes, it's going to run our function here. And then there's a few different kinds. So get is usually when you're just like retrieving something. Post is when you're creating, and post can accept data via the request body. There's also put, which you'll use when you're updating something. And then there's delete when you're deleting something. And then there's some other ones that you probably won't use very often. So right now we want post. And then in here, what do we got to do? We want to get the sent in data off request body. And then we want to create a note with it. And then we want to send or respond with the note, with the new note. So our server is going to deal exclusively with JSON. So it's going to send and read JSON. And by default, Express can't read JSON from the request body. You have to configure it to do that. So it's just one line. So let's add a new section right below here. We'll call it configure express app. And then I'm just going to paste in the line. It's app.use express.json. And this will make it read JSON off the request body. So anyway, let's go back down here. So the first part is we have to get the data off the request body. So it's super simple. You just go rec.body. Whatever you want to get off it. So we're going to be expecting a title. So I'll assign that to a variable. And we're also going to be expecting a body. So let's add that also. So const body is equal to request.body.body. So we got our title and body here, and now we got to create a note with it. So to do that, we have to import our note model from right here. So let's go back up here, and we'll go const capital note is equal to require, and it's a local file, so /, and then it's in the models folder /note. So we got it imported now, and we can go back down here and use it. So it's going to be await capital note dot create, and then we're using await, so we have to make this an async function. And then note dot create, you have to pass it the data in an object. So our note has a title, which is equal to the title that we got off the request body, and it has a body, which is equal to the body that we got off the request body. So save that, and then let's this is going to create it, and then let's assign it to a variable called note. I did lowercase here, so the model is import is capital, so I'm allowed to use lowercase also. So we created the note, and it's assigned to this variable, so we want to respond with it. So same way as above, res.json. Note is equal to note right there. So this should create a note, and we're going to test it now. And to test it, we're going to use an app called Postman. And it's just basically an interface to send requests. And yeah, 20 million people use it, so it's pretty popular. I already got it downloaded. Once you get it, you'll have to sign up and log in and everything. And then you'll want to create a workspace. We'll call it note-taking app. It's going to be a personal workspace. Hit create, and then a workspace has collections, so let's create a collection called notes. And then collections have requests, so let's add a request, and this will be called create note. And then yeah, we're just going to fill in the data here so we can send a post request that matches what we set up here. So it's a post to /notes. So let's go back and change this to post. And you have to put localhost here, so localhost 3000 /notes. And then we said we're going to be sending it JSON in the request body, so let's go to the body tab right here. Find JSON, you won't see it, you have to go to raw, and then on the drop down you see JSON, and then we just put our JSON in this text field. So ours is going to have a title, my first note, and a body. My note body. And then this should work, so let's hit send and see what happens. It sends to our server, and our server creates it and responds with the note. So everything looks good here. So we're creating it. Let's just check in the database also. So if we went back to our MongoDB, we can click browse collections, and it'll show us all the data. So we have a notes column, and we created our first note. So now that we're creating notes, we're going to learn how to fetch the notes. So let's create a new route. We'll call this app.get since we're just fetching data. And then it'll be /notes again. And this gets a function that receives rec and res. And then in here we want to find the notes and respond with them. So the first part, find the notes, let's look up how to do that. We go to Mongoose, we go to queries, and here's all the different methods we can use. So we want find right here. So where were we? Right here. We got to go const notes is equal to await capital note dot find, and that should get all our notes, but we're using await, so we have to make this an async function. So we got our notes, and then we want to respond with it. So res.json notes is equal to the notes variable right there. So this should work. Let's try it out. We'll go back to Postman. We're going to create a new request. We'll call this one fetch notes. And it's a get request this time to localhost/notes. Hit send. And we get an array of notes back, and we just have one right now. So that's working good. So we can create a note, we can fetch a list of all the notes, and we also want to be able to fetch a single note. So let's do that. So we're going to go app.get. It's going to be /notes. And then this time we're going to want to kind of accept an ID inside of the URL. So the user is going to send a request to /notes/ say the ID is these characters. And we basically want to be able to get that from the URL. So to do that, you put a colon, and then you put the variable you want to assign it to. So we'll do ID. And then, it gets a function that receives rec and res. We open that up. And then here, we want to get this ID off the URL, right? And then we want to find the note using that ID, and then we want to respond with the note. So to get the ID off the URL, it's just rec.params. And then whatever you named it, we named it ID. And whatever comes after notes is going to get assigned to this variable right here. So let's assign it to note ID. So we got our ID, now we got to find using that ID. So let's go back to Mongoose, and it's the find by ID method. So we're going to go const note is equal to await capital note dot find by ID, and then you have to pass it the ID. So we get our note ID variable right there, and this should be finding our note, and then we just want to respond with it. So res.json and note is equal to note. So this should work. Let's try it out in Postman. So let's create a new request. We'll call this one fetch note. It's going to be localhost 3000/notes/ and then we give it an ID. So we can copy that from here. Paste it in, and this should work. Let's try it out. And we get an error, so let's see what's going on. Await is only valid in async functions. So let's go back here. I forgot to put async up here. So let's do that and try it again. And now it works. We get our note back. All right, so we can read and we can create. Next, we got to do updating. So let's just minimize these. So I'll put it down here. I'll go app. And if you remember, for updating, you're going to use put. So app.put, and it's going to be /notes, and then we're going to accept an ID in the URL like we did up here. So :ID, and it gets a function which gets rec and res. We're going to open that up, and then in here we got to get the ID off the URL, and then find and update the record. And then I guess we'll respond with it too. Alright, so the first part we did right up here. It's just rec.params. whatever we named it, which is ID. I'm going to assign that to a variable called note ID. Alright, and then we got find and update the record. So let's look up how to do that. So we're going to want to do find by ID and update right here. So let's go const note is equal to capital note dot find by ID and update. And if we hover over this, we got to pass it an ID and then the data we want to update. So our ID is right here. I'll put that in there. And then the second part is what we want to update. So we forgot to get the data off the request body. So a note has a title and a body, so let's get both of those. So it's just const title is equal to rec.body.title, and const body is equal to rec.body.body. So now we can pass that in here. So title is equal to our title variable up here, and body is equal to body. And I need a trailing comma right there. And then this has to be await, and when we use await, it has to be an async function. So we're getting the ID off the URL, we're getting the title and body off the request body, and then we're putting it all together in this find by ID and update method. And then we got to respond with it. So res.json note is equal to note. And this should work. One thing I'm not sure on is if this returns the updated record or the old record. So let's try that out. So we'll create a new request, add request. We'll call this one update note. This time it's a put request to localhost 3000/note/ whatever ID you're updating. So I'll just copy the same one as last time. And this time we're sending in JSON in the body. So let's go raw, let's go JSON, and then we're gonna have a title. So updated title, and then we're gonna go body, updated body. So this should work. Let's try it out. We hit send, it hits our server, and it sent back the old note. So let's see if it actually updated. Let's go to our database, and then I'm just gonna refresh the page. So it did update it, but it doesn't return the updated note. So if you wanted to send back the updated note, you'd actually have to find it again down here. So find updated note. So we don't need to assign this to a variable. So let's remove this. And then we'll go const note is equal to await capital note dot find. We want to find the same ID. And yeah, and then we're responding with this. So right here we're updating it, it waits to update, and then we're finding it again so we can fetch the updated version, and then we're sending it back. Hopefully this works. I'm not sure if it will. Let's see. So we'll change it updated title to updated body to and hit send. Come on. Something went wrong. Let's see what's going on. Parameter filter to, okay, so I accidentally did find instead of find by ID. So let's change that. Find is if you want to find all of them. Find by ID is if you want to find a single record. So let's go back. Let's just change it to 3 in case it did update. Send again. And yeah, now we get updated title 3 and updated body 3. So we got our update working. And then, yeah, the last one, we got to be able to delete a record. So let's make another one, app.delete. And it's going to be the same as up here, /note/ID. And it takes a function that receives rec and res. We open that up, and in here we want to find and delete the record. But first we got to get the ID off the URL. So get ID off URL. Delete the record, and then respond. So to get the ID off the URL, same way as before, rec.params.id. We'll just assign that to note ID. And then let's look up how to delete a record. So we go back to Mongoose. Let's see. Probably this delete one method. So let's try that. Let's go await, and since we're using await, it's got to be an async function. Await note dot, what was it called? Delete one. And then in there, let's check out the example. You put like a filter method to find the one we want to delete. So in our case, we'll find it by the ID. So delete the first record that has ID of a note ID off the URL. And then this should delete it. And then since it's deleted, we just kind of want to respond with like a message or something. So I'll just put success, record deleted. So let's try this out. Let's go to Postman, create a new request. We'll call this one delete note, and this time it's a delete request to localhost 3000/node/id. And then I think that should work. Let's try it. We hit send and we get the success message. So let's check our database to make sure it actually deleted. So I'll reload this. And yeah, it's gone. So we don't have any notes anymore. So there we go. We did create, read, update, and delete. And then now we're just going to clean this up a little bit. So usually people, they use what's called controllers, and it's basically just files that hold these functions. So we're going to do that. Let's create a new folder called controllers. And then we'll create a file called notescontroller.js. And then in here, let's copy all those functions. So let's go back to server. This is just that hello world one we made. I'm just going to delete that. Okay, this is fetch all the notes. Let's copy the function, paste it in here, and we'll assign it to a variable called fetch notes. And then let's copy the rest of them. So we got this one, which is to fetch a single note. So we'll call this const fetch note is equal to that. Save it. Let's get the next one. This is our create one, so let's create a new one called create note. Paste it in. And then we got our update function right here. Let's grab that. It'll be const update note. And then last we got delete note is equal to, let's go back here and grab it, equal to that function. So we got all our functions right here, and now we want to export them all. But first we're using the note model in this file, so we have to import it. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to go const note is equal to require. It's a local file. We got to go back a folder, so ../model/note. And then I'm just going to minify these. We got to export them all, so module.exports is equal to, and then you can only export one thing, but we got to export 5 functions. So how people do that is they just export an object that contains all the stuff you want to export. So we want to export fetch notes, so it's equal to fetch notes. We got fetch note is equal to fetch note. Create note is equal to create note. What else we got? Update note is equal to update note. And then delete note is equal to delete note. And I'm going to hit save, and now it's all exporting, so we can import it in here and use those in these routes. So let's go up here. This is faded out, which means we're no longer using it. So let's delete that. And we'll go const notes controller is equal to require, and it's /controller/notes controller. So we got it imported. Now we can use it below. Let's just connect all these. So we got, this was to fetch all the notes, so fetch notes. This was to fetch a single note, so fetch note. This was to create a note, so create note. This was to update a note, so update note. And then to delete a note, it's .delete note. So there we go. Let's make sure we have no errors. Go back to our terminal. Everything looks good. Let's go to Postman. Let's create a note. We get it. Let's fetch all our notes. We still get them all. Let's fetch a single note. Note is equal to null, and that's because we have a new ID now, so we got to update that. So update the URL. We get the note, update it. I also have to update the ID right there. I do it, I get the updated version, and then to delete it, you gotta update the ID, and it deletes it. So everything's still working, And then I guess the last thing we can do is just kind of use the more modern syntax. So let's go back here and let's see what we can clean up. So if the key and the value match, you can just shorten it like this. Let's go down here and then yep, same thing right here. Let's check out create. So we can get both these properties off rec.body in one line. And to do that, you go const brackets, and then you put in whatever you want, so title and body. And we want to get that off of rec.body. So this line does the same as these two below it, so I'll delete those. And then we can shorten these, since they match. And shorten this guy down here. And we gotta do the same thing in these ones. So const, we want title and body off of rec.body. And we can shorten these. And shorten it down here. Alright, and then we're gonna clean up down here. I'm just gonna delete these because they match. Save that, check terminal, we don't have any errors, so everything should still be good. And then the very last thing we're gonna do is just set up cores. So by default, the server won't allow requests from other domains, and our React app is gonna be on a different domain. So that will be, say, localhost 3001, while the server's on localhost 3000. So we just have to set up this package to allow that. It's called cores, cross origin, request. I don't know what the S is for, but yeah, let's set it up. You just install it like this. So let's go back here. I'll just type it actually. So stop our server with Command C and then npm install -- save cores. And then we'll start up our server again with npm run dev. And then go back here. We got to import it. So let's go back to our server. Go to import dependencies, and I'll go const cores is equal to require cores. And then we have to set it up with express, so we just copy this line right here. I'll go in my configure section and paste it below that line. And yeah, now our server will accept requests from any domain. And this is kind of relaxed. Normally you would put specific domain names and maybe restrict certain routes and everything. But for now, we're just going to allow it from anywhere. And yeah, we got our whole server set up here. Everything should be good to go. We don't have any errors. So in the next video, we'll connect this to React.